any interested parties to that. But there was nothing else that staff could locate, although we continue to see if something will come up in our records.
Mr. Marr, there's also a question as to whether or not this 1 foot reserve can be used to stop development.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think my report on January 13th mentioned that 1 foot reserves have to be used in a reasonable way. They can't be used arbitrarily. One of the conclusions that the court had reached in the city of Barrie was that if a municipality was unsuccessful at the board and an applicant was successful moving forward an application for development, the municipality couldn't arbitrarily refuse to lift the 1 foot reserves. If it decided to do so, the applicant could likely go to Superior Court of Justice and have those 1 foot reserves forcibly removed. So that was one challenge that would be faced by municipality with 1 foot reserves.
Thank you, Mr. Marr. Mr. Gibbon.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this will be very brief. When I spoke to you about the status of the discussions with the condominium corporation, I know I created the wrong impression about the status of the negotiations. I've been advised that these negotiations are continue. Both sides are optimistic, but they're not as far advanced as I had understood them to be when I spoke to you. I apologize for any confusion that might have taken. With respect to the process that we're in, I've listened to all of these comments from your residents. Many are residents that have come out to all 3 meetings that you've hosted and 1 meeting that we hosted. I think we are at a stage that you should consider taking our request and the requests that came from the Residents Association that we would like to continue to negotiate and work with them, but we've put a timetable on it so that we would like to be concluded in that process by December the 1st so that you could bring a report on following that or at that same time that would allow this process to get some focus by hearing from your staff and what their recommendations would be. I hope that we can leave it with that way. We are continuing to work with the residents to try to find solutions to move this forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbon. We're still in the public session. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak either for first time or come back, please? And if you could just make sure that you give us your name so that we can...
I'm Heather Collins and I live at 14924 Yonge Street. That's the Highland Green condo. And I missed 1 meeting, so I'm not sure whether anyone asked this question. What I'm wondering is this proposed 10-story condo, how big are these individual condos going to be? And what will the cost of the individual condos be? So perhaps that's something that the developer needs to answer, I don't know. But I'm just curious to know how large each unit will be, the various sizes of the units, and also what they will sell for.
Thank you. Any other speakers at this? Please come up. If you give us your name, sir. And your address.
Yeah, my name is Bill Galloway. I live at 22 Devlin Place. Relative to Mr. Gibbons' just last statements, I don't want any arbitrary date set. As I understand it, you as mayor and the members of council run this town, and I would rather deal with your agenda than the developer's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Galloway. Any other speakers, please? Mr. Wernberg. Ms. Shaw.
I have 2 things that I would like to add to this. Number 1 is when I'm listening to Mr. Gibbon, it seems to be dependent on what they can work out with the Residents Association and possibly the condo building corporations as to whether we can get on with this thing. There is, as we have heard tonight, a community that is called Aurora that also would like to have a word in this somewhere along the line and would like to be part of the process that will come to a final agreement on this, if that is what it's going to come down to. So I would respectfully request that either the board invite some outside residents in on their negotiations so that we can be be in on the facts and figures and so on, or that there will be another sort of committee or a group of people who come from elsewhere in Aurora so that we can get their input respected around the negotiation table. That is one of the things I would like to see. The other thing I would like to mention is the total commitment of the Aurora citizens to have off-road trails, and even 15% of the trails that are going to be on-road is not going to be acceptable to those people who are generally being asked in surveys in this town. 5 years ago, 2009, we had a survey under the Trails Master Plan consultation process where the citizens of Aurora were overwhelmingly in favor of having off-road trails, which is what the Trails Master Plan is all about. They also had a question that related to people who were currently using the sidewalks for cycling and walking. And they were asked, would you switch to trails to conduct these activities if they were available? 96% said they would switch away from on-road to off-road, basically. I would like you to have this in mind when you're talking about trails, not just take it lightly. In the more recent past, last month and this month, there was a survey under the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that I understand has asked a number of questions relative to the acceptability of amenities or the preference for amenities that relate to recreation. And it was the nature trails that came out at 91% as the top amenity of recreational activities in this town. And that is this month's survey. We should not be ignoring these and go ongoingly ignore these things. We should be paying attention to what the people of Aurora want and have it respected in our planning and implementations. Thank you.
Susan. Pardon me, Ms. Shaw.
This is fine. I understand that Council has approved an additional public meeting for November the 30th. Am I correct in that understanding?
We have a public meeting, but it's not about this.
Oh, okay. I was told it was connected to this. Okay, thank you.
Any other speakers? Sir, if you can come up and give us your name and gentlemen.
My name's Doug Scott on Corner Ridge Road. This question actually doesn't affect me since the design is for houses to back onto my property, but it's a question that we seem to be downplaying the parking issue on single-sided roads and not addressing it, either with the proponent or the town. I've heard a rumor that the proponent is proposing to put parking, little parking lots along the side of the non-developed side of the streets, much like we see in residential condo developments. And I was just wondering if if that is true, it's not on the proposal. And secondly, is the town planning department aware of this or not? Just a yes or no answer. Thank you.
My name is Steve Gooderum, and I'm at 267 Murray Drive. I've been to all the meetings, and I have not heard one positive comment about this this development. I found it quite interesting at the last meeting when Council addressed the developer and what their opinions were. And I'm disappointed, although I didn't think I would hear much different, but the developer is clearly not about to change anything in his plan. So the question is, I'll assume, I would like some clarity on the process of how we go forward. I'm guessing that his proposal stands as it is. It's up to you, the council, to vote whether they will accept it or not, which I'm hoping you won't. And assuming you don't, what's his next step? If it goes to the OMB, what then? Because everything about this is not, for me, it's not about Highland Gate, it's about the entire town. Because his changes to our rules of developing property will redefine the entire town. Every condo going up, the minimum standard is 10 stories. Every road that goes in is going to be this new standard, because you cannot say yes to him and no to the next guy. It won't happen. So what happens when he goes with this exact same plan to the OMB? What happens? How does can council defend the position of the town and its citizens to just being bulldozed by a developer who's refused to make any amendments, other than the only thing I saw him amend was he agreed to not put in a tennis court. So he now puts in the whatever that was going to cost right in his pocket. Of course, I'd say, sure, I won't do that. But the point is, he's not willing to work with the town. Otherwise, he would have made some amendments after all these meetings.
Did I see someone else that wanted to speak? Mr. Gibbon, if I may just ask you one quick question. It did come up a couple of times. The size of the condos and a rough ballpark pricing, would you have that, or could you get that?
The information I have is that the units will vary from a minimum of about 800 square feet up to 1,400 square feet, and the pricing will be in the range of, I'm trying to read this, $400,000 to $900,000.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbon. Appreciate it. Mr. Marr, I'm not sure how much you can speak to in terms of the process of going forward. Could you say what you can say? For me? No. We have I can't say anything about the process right now. We will put something together, because we have to be very careful what we do say. So, and we will put together why, all right?
Mr. Mayor, he can speak generally to the OMB.
He can speak generally. Very generally.
Okay, well, who's going to?
Very generally.
Mr. Marr, could you speak generally to the OMB process?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, given the status of the application before council right now, the applicant technically does and is in the period of time in which they could go to the board for failure of the council to make a decision within the statutory time frame, because we have engaged the public. If it did end up at the board, generally speaking, the process would be the board would set a date. There likely would be a pre-hearing. The board member we would have to circulate as well notice of that board hearing to all the interested parties. That's why it's so important for members of the public to sign up. And we would have have that notice delivered to everybody who signed up and notify any interested parties, government agencies as well. As part of that pre-hearing, it likely would be that the board member would ask those people looking to be either participants or actual parties to come forward and state their interest. And try and narrow and scope the issues, at which point the parties would likely sit down either with to determine whether or not mediation was required or would be successful, and to schedule and determine how long the hearing would be for the particular matter. So that's just generally speaking what we would be looking for. I would expect the process, if it were to end up at the board, not to be heard by the board probably within 12 to 18 months before we ended up at a full hearing. And again, it depends on how busy the board is and when they could schedule such a hearing on this matter, which is likely going to involve multiple parties and a complex issue.
Thank you, Mr. Marr. Are there any other speakers from the public? Please come up, sir. If you could give us your name. And if you could put the clock back up, please.
You think I'm going to be that long, Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor and members of council, my name is Jim Mickhack. I live at 39 Cranberry Lane. Along with my wife Paulette, we were the original purchasers of that property. I really have nothing specific to say other than to seek clarification from Mr. Marr, and this has to deal with his comments with respect to the land reserve. I corresponded with Mr. Marr over the last couple of days with respect to the land reserve, and I do have some questions if I could direct them to Mr. Marr through you, sir.
Just give us your questions and we'll direct it to who's best to answer.
Well, I'm referring, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Marr, to your conclusion in the January 13th submission to council. And the way I read this conclusion, I get the feeling that the town does not have the authority to reject this application with respect to the land reserve. Is that correct?
Sorry, Mr. McCack, this is not a debate.
I'm asking the question, sir, for clarification.
But we don't have a question and answer going on, okay? So if you have other questions, please let me know.
Sir, I think it's a fundamental question in terms of the actions that the members in this room might be taking.
I agree. I understand what you're saying, sir, but I'm running the meeting, not you. If you have other questions, please give them. Then I will direct them to who I think is best to answer it.
Okay, sir. Then, with respect to the conclusion in the January 13 document, the reference is made to relevant planning principles. So perhaps this could be considered by the Commissioner of Planning. What are the relevant planning principles that council should consider?
Do you have other questions, sir?
Well, I'll put forward then some items that I think the council may wish to consider.
Thank you.
With respect to relevant planning principles, this should probably include everything you've heard over the last 3 sessions. That's an expression of community values, of community concerns, and community preference. To me, that's a relevant planning principle. Secondly, ecological impact, community impact, cultural impact, and economic impact are clear planning principles that need to be considered. Third, the actions of the proponent in this case and the request that's being made of you to respect to all the variances and the types of variances that are being requested, clearly that's a relevant planning principle that needs to be considered. And there are many, many more that I can go through: your foundational plans, your official plan, the consistency of that plan over a 30-year period with respect to the zoning, the fact that there's been no statement of intent from the town in any way, shape, or form to move the zoning in that land, on those lands to any other type of use is a relevant planning consideration. The fact that previous council rejected an application for limited infilling is a relevant planning consideration. And I hope that the planning staff that is sitting here tonight will, when it prepares this report that goes to you, will identify what those relevant planning principles are beyond the narrow scope of the Planning Act and reflect that in its advice back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other speakers, please? And I will ask you to give us your name, sir, when you get up to the microphone.
Tom Hashem. I spoke quite randomly earlier. This is the first meeting I've attended. Sorry for not being at the last couple, but I just want to add one more comment. Again, I've lived here for many years, and my understanding is that if I decided to add an addition to my home and put it within a foot of my neighbor's property, I would simply not be allowed to do so by the town. This seems to be the same case on a much larger scale, and I simply want to know, is the town council for the residents of Aurora, or are they for one property owner? They're a large property owner, but they're one property owner. And from what I've seen so far, it seems that the town is kind of on the side of the developer. And I think, well, I voted for some of you. I don't even know who I voted for, but I voted for some of you. And I feel that the board, or the council, I should say, should be fighting for the residents of the town of Aurora. And that's really all I have to say. It just this proposal doesn't make sense to me in its current form. I don't know if the developer can even change it to make it reasonable, but they don't appear to have even tried. And I think maybe it'll be a long, hard, tough legal battle, and I think the citizens may lose. But I think that the town, the town council should be behind the residents. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other speakers? Please, give us your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Linda O'Connell. I live at 82 Timberline Trail. I've been resident there for 25 years. Just one more minor technical point. The whole drainage of these subdivision streets is by ditches, right? There are no storm sewers mentioned anywhere in any location. There are no grids in the street to collect water. What happens in the winter when the snowbanks freeze on the side and trap all that water in the street? Are they going to be passable? What happens in the spring melt when the water is flowing through ditches? Where does it end up? Or does it just remain in those ditches and become stagnant water to breed mosquitoes? How can a whole subdivision go in without storm drains anywhere? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions? Mr. Ramuna, could you please just speak to that last point?
Certainly. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the storm management system that's being proposed is what's known as a LID, low impact development. There will be storm sewers proposed, a combination of storm sewers, catch basins, street catch basins, as well as the swales that everybody's heard about, the low impact development swales, and they act as infiltration beds, but there are also storm sewers proposed. Just no stormwater ponds, as we've seen in the past.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Any other speakers, please? Are you sliding over to the microphone, sir?
Hi, my name is Mike Adams. I live at 78 Timberline Trail. There were a number of questions related to concerns on property values. And if I understand correctly, you say that that was to be dealt with at the FAQs. Is that correct? You had directed any questions related to that to the FAQs and that had been dealt with there?
There is, without getting into to a question and answer with you, but there is on our website, there is a portion of our website that talks about property values.
Okay, because I went through the entire FAQs and there's nothing related to that there, so if someone can help me find it, or could you address that question to everybody that's here?
We'll look it up and get you the information.
You don't want to just address it? Or someone can do it now. I want this evening. I don't want it to be while everybody leaves. So
we'll get you a link before we finish here.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other speakers, please? Sir?
Evening, everybody, members of the council and mayor. My name is Adam Crawford. I live at 109 Golf Links Drive. I am a young youth. I've grown up in the community my entire life. I attended Regency Acres. I attended Dr. G.W. Williams High School as well. I walked both directions from Golf Links Drive to Regency Acres and to Williams. The natural beauty of the street, as everyone is capsulating, they've all been on the planet a lot longer than I have, but it's the area that I've grown up in. You all have houses, you all have families. My family lives in the area, lives in the community, and has grown up here. We have built a family, I have built friends, I have built community, and I give back to York Region as a whole and Aurora as a whole. Volunteer, Boy Scouts, you name it, I've done it all. Everyone's stating policies, procedures, a lot of different legislation and stuff, but it truly comes down to a community, and a community that I've grown up in. Everyone's lived in different areas, brought experience to different areas, but we've created a nest egg, we've created an environment in Aurora that we've all grown up, we've all come to love, and that's why people come to these meetings, to truly put forth their front. And looking around, I'm probably one of the youngest people in the room right now, but I've attended almost all of the meetings as much as I can. And I just want to show my support to the people in the room. Also, you are members of the community. You are residents, you hold a position of power, and you do have the power to support us and support the dreams of youth to come, and my generation. I'd love to live in Aurora. I'd love to one day inherit my parents' house. I'm not wishing it will on anyone. I work in the medical field, so. But I want to see the community stay as a whole. I've played on the golf course that I live on. I've sold golf balls to golfers that come on the course. I'm not sure if it was legal, but I did it. And I want to see you guys put your best foot forward for the community, for yourselves. If someone said one day, I want to come to your backyard, I want to put a 6-foot retaining wall, I want to build a condo building, you know what? I just want to cut down your tree. I think you guys would be pretty forefront sitting in this room talking to someone else about the impact on your community. So going beyond all the policies, all the procedures, all the drawings, because I'm not up to all that kind of stuff and the experience that everyone has in this room, but it's truly the power that the people have to, as everyone said, the timelines, the deadlines, the abilities. You've been voted in. I've voted for people. I've only been able to vote for a short time, but I've still voted for the people sitting up in front of me right now. And I believe you guys, with our help, with everyone's support, can defend a community that I've grown up in, and I hope to see future people grow up in and enjoy an area that is extremely beautiful, extremely beautiful. So I appreciate your support, your time here, guys, and everyone that's sitting in this room. And I just want to see the best for our community and for my future life within Aurora. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And should we be careful? Should we be concerned about your parents? Mr. Ramuno is just getting some information. Do you have that, Mr. Ramuno?
Through Mr. Mayor, just I know it was on the screen earlier on. We do on our website, for those who are interested with respect to the information we have posted on our website, the link is www.aurora.ca, and we do have a Highland Gate Development Sync page, and it was updated a couple of days ago, and you will find some additional information there, and specifically with respect to the question regarding property values and the impact assessment information. So that is on our link, and hopefully you'll be able to find it, because again, the page was updated just a couple days ago.
Mr. Marr, if I could go back to you, a couple of councillors don't think that we've properly answered the 1-foot reserve question. If you could take another shot at that, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will try my best to answer that. I think the conclusion in my report, if I can read it out for those who haven't had the benefit of seeing it, stated that 1-foot reserves do exist within Highland Gate, but their use as leverage in any future development of the lands cannot be heavy-handed or arbitrary. The purpose of 1-foot reserves as a planning tool is to enable municipalities to control access and development on the adjacent lands. The courts have ruled that a municipality exercising its discretion to lift a 1-foot reserve cannot make its decision in bad faith for arbitrary reasons or for extraneous, irrelevant, or collateral considerations that have nothing to do with relevant planning principles. Earlier in my report, I also noted that the Ontario Municipal Board does not have jurisdiction to order a municipality to lift a 1-foot reserve if an applicant is successful at the board. If a municipality refuses to lift the 1-foot reserve, the applicant likely will have to go through a court process, and that means going to the Superior Court of Justice. However, practically speaking, using a 1-foot reserve to frustrate a developer after a municipality loses planning arguments at the Ontario Municipal Board would likely be seen by the court as an inappropriate attempt to set aside or frustrate the board's decision.
Councillors, is that?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other? Ma'am, if you could give us your name and address, please.
Hi, my name's Patricia Perry. I live at 5 Doty Street. Your definition of why we can't use a 1-foot reserve can be flipped to say we should be able to use the 1-foot reserve because of what you've said is totally unreasonable what they're proposing as a plan. They can make money by the condo units alone. They don't have to infill the golf course. They can use sections of the golf course that are adaptable to housing. They don't have to put back roads in or one-sided roads, whatever. But the exact definition that you've read, if you reread, and I could go through it with you, we could use that because it's reasonable for us to use it because we're frustrated. I don't care if Geranium's frustrated anymore. They have had a chance to come by and have another plan. Put something forth that is a little bit more reasonable. There's 600 people in the ratepayers alone that are speaking up, that are here defending the neighborhood. But there's a lot more people that are frustrated. So you want frustration? Use your 1-foot reserve for us, not for the developer. Flip it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Are there any other speakers, please? Going once? Going twice? Okay, we're going to close the public portion of this meeting. We're going to go to council. We've heard some new information tonight, council. We've heard some new frustrations, to be frank. But I sense that there is a willingness, at least on the part of the Ratepayers Association and the Highland Green Condominium Corporation to continue to work, continue to speak with the Highland Gate Development Corporation to see what they could work out. And so, council, my suggestion, and this is at your discretion, obviously, is that if someone wanted to suggest that we direct our staff to work with the residents, to work with the Highland Gate Development Corporation to take these comments into account, to see what what changes we can affect and to see how, to see whether there is some light at the end of this particular tunnel. I think it would be worth our staff's time. I think it would be worth the effort of the Ratepayers Association, and would definitely be worth the effort of the developer. If council is of a mind to do that, I would entertain that motion. Councillor Humphreys.
This one? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's an excellent idea. What I heard tonight, though, is that there's...
Councillor, we're going to need a motion first.
Okay, so the motion is to another planning session, but to have... Oh, you've got it already written.
It's recommended by our
I want to say a few words, but anyway. That staff be directed to report back to a future public planning meeting, addressing the issues raised at this special council meeting, public meeting tonight.
Is there a seconder for that? Please, Councillor Kim, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, may I add a few comments at this point?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, this evening I heard a lot of the same complaints or concerns from the last two meetings, some new concerns as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor. But what I'm really looking for is the next time we get together, I want staff, the developer, the ratepayers to have answers to each of the concerns, and that each of the items that were brought up today, that we understand the position of the developer and the recommendations around the variances that they're asking for and what that means to us. I need a full-blown report in order to make an appropriate decision. At this point, there's just a lot of work to still do, and I'm looking forward to those concerns of the residents this evening to be brought forward and to be answered. There's particular ones in the one on Doty where you've got different roads around, the zoning variance of requesting R2 when it's R1. These specific details need to be addressed and answered so that we understand the full-blown plan moving forward. And if the developer is able to make some significant changes, because I don't think it hasn't been presented to us.
Hit the button. Councillors, any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Maracas, Councillor. The motion is to come back to a future public planning meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my first question is that when will this take place? I think everyone would want to know a date. And I think that council should set a date so that the residents would know what date would be coming back.
I'll go to the clerk.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, the specific date would depend on several factors, and I would undoubtedly be coming back to council in that respect. As council's aware, these public planning meetings have been off-site due to the interest of the public and the number of people who have come out to these meetings. We would actually, I believe, subject to me checking things out at Town Hall, maximum capacities and everything, have to make arrangements for a facility, and that can take a little time. And working around the schedules of school, of course, especially when you get into December, which we're almost there. So, but I would be working with the school boards and stuff to identify appropriate dates for us to have it, and then council versus its own calendar.
Councilor Marcus?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, my thoughts are that we should possibly have the next meeting in the council chambers. I understand that there might be some restrictions when it comes to how many people would be in there. I just think that having it in the chambers, I know that the ratepayers, when they were forming, that they had it in the chambers, and they were able to accommodate the full amount of residents that came out. So I don't see that there would be any issue if we had it in the chamber, and I just think it would be a better venue for us to have that final meeting there.
Thank you, Councillor.
No, and everyone, don't get me wrong, I think you could all fit in there. I appreciate everyone being there.
Okay. Councillor, can you microphone? Other speakers, I'm to the motion on the floor, please. Councillor Gardner. To the motion, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. My question was also about the timing, but as has been said here, the timing has to suit us and not the developer.
Any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm thrilled to support the motion to bring it back to another public planning meeting, although I would have hoped that we would have been able to address some of the concerns before this public planning meeting. Although it seems that nothing really has been done with respect to addressing the public's concerns and this council's concerns with respect to the application that's before us tonight. I did at the last meeting outline a number of pretty specific concerns that I had and more requests for more information. So again, I'm happy to support the motion because I hope that finally I can get some of that information, and I know that all of you are looking for more information as well. At the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Given, the planner for the applicant, he cited the town's official plan with respect to private open space and when it's proposed to be developed. And in that subsection, specifically number 2, that evidence has that the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding uses. I would say that that's probably the most key line in that subsection. And yet we have a list of 7 site-specific bylaw exceptions that we actually have no information with respect to how many lots are affected by those, whether it's every single of the proposed houses or whether it's just 1 or 2. So again, at the last meeting I asked for that information. I'd like that to be presented to me at the next meeting. And I think more broadly, it's been mentioned many times, you know, whose side this council is on. I can say for myself, and I hope for everyone on this at this table, that we are with the residents. We are residents of the town ourselves. I was born in Aurora, I was raised in Aurora, and I always have the best interests of Aurora at heart. And so residents can be assured, at least in my case, and I'm sure in everyone else's case, that we do take this very seriously, and we are on your side. Thank you.
Councillor Abel, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in support of the motion coming forward, but if I could be clear, Mr. Mayor, that we are going to work, staff is going to work with the Ratepayers Association, which has done a great job, and the applicant, and come back with an alternate. I'm hoping that's what we're hearing, something that we can all work and be proud of. And we can see just by what we've heard for the last 3 meetings that there's got to be a complete turnaround. So at the bottom line, I would like to see something along the lines where we can express our principles, and the 1 foot reserve is basically saying we'd like to employ a 1 foot principle for you to come to talk to us about what we see in our town and how it operates under our official plan and how this stable neighborhood has developed. And this is how we see it. We see it with a trail coming all the way through, an off-road trail. We see compatibility, and we will work with you, Mr. Developer, and provide you an opportunity. But we would also like to have an opportunity to enhance the properties that are affected by this. I would like to see some of the documentation that went in, because I believe there is some secondary or perhaps some understanding of what took place on the infill, because it's already been infilled once. So this speaks volumes about what we have an opportunity to say. I know for certain there isn't a secondary plan that said, come and see us, there's only a one-sided street that you can do on this. So I would like to see something that reflects the stable neighborhood that we have nurtured in Aurora. And we have an opportunity with that green space to create a legacy. And I'd like to see it that employed. And if that's what this motion is going to come forward with, I'd like to see that.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Any other comments to the motion? Councillor Thompson.
You know, I think, Mayor Dodd, it's important to note that many residents tonight came out and expressed their frustration. You know, that they feel that they've done their part, they've come out, they've been engaged, they've attended the meetings, they've submitted their comments, they've spoken up about their concerns, but they don't feel that they're necessarily being heard. We heard over and over tonight that there hasn't been meaningful change or revisions to address some of these concerns. And so while I'm glad to support the motion before us, because it sounds like there may be some issues being addressed, I think that the expectation of myself and those around the table and here in this room is that at the next planning meeting there will be some meaningful change or revisions to the plan.
Councillor Kim, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, it seems like the name that I'll remember the most is Mr. Oscar Gia, and he seems to be kind of like a cult hero tonight, but I think he's encouraged me to say that Harold is actually not my first given name, and I actually have another name as well. But it didn't sound very cool, so I was given another name, Harold. You know, I just want to respond to two things. I think first, in response to, you know, several of those who said that, you know, you'd like council on your side. You know, there is a process in place, and for me, myself, this is the first time I think myself and, excuse me, any one of us have gone through such a huge process that involves such a huge amount of lives. And so I can speak for everyone here that we do value every one of you, and you know, just by the amount of homes that we visited, and I've never been invited to that many homes myself, and I'm grateful for it. But I just want to assure you guys that we're looking out for the well-being of Aurora, all of the 600-700 people, as well as, you know, the best interests of you know, the town and the environment and all that. We just want to make sure that all the legalities, the technicalities, all the policies are upheld, and that yourselves and us, that are given a valid explanation. And